There's a battle for your mind, and you decide who wins. The way Satan attacks is to put his thoughts into your mind, because he wants to influence the way you think. And if he can do that, he can control your behavior. And his most favorite way of doing that is through the technique of temptation. Temptation is a baited hook. The hook is to convince you to do some kind of sinful, rebellious act. And the bait is to make it so appealing that you can't resist it. So the bait is that if you do this sinful act that he's tempting you with, it will ease your pain, solve a problem, no one's looking, it'll make you feel better, you'll really enjoy it. And when you take the bait, swallow the hook, fall into sin, Satan just laughs at you because you fell for it. But there's another kind of temptation, which is much more common, and I'm sure you've fallen for it. That's the temptation to fear. Now, this is not a temptation to sin. Fear is not a sin. Fear is just a strong emotion like anger that can be used for good or evil. And God gave us the capacity for fear so we wouldn't walk too close to the edge of a cliff or drive too fast around a curve. It was for self-preservation. But Satan loves to induce fear because it creates emotional pain. And then he dangles some bait in front of you, his solution to your emotional pain, to lure you into greater sin, into his trap. But what he likes most about inducing fear is he uses fear to erode your trust in God. So here's how it happens. He studies your life to see what you're most vulnerable to be afraid of. And then he drops into your mind thoughts that start with these two key words, what if? And then when you get the what if thought, you think, whoa, well, what if that happened? That would be terrible. I need to start worrying about that. So that's the hook, because he wants to lead you into a fearful mind spiral down. And the bait he uses is he justifies the fear. He says, look at that. You really should be afraid of that. And whoa, look at that. And then look at your friends. Look at the disasters that they fell into, and it started the same way. You really need to be afraid of it. But then he just twists the knife into you when he says, God didn't protect them. He won't protect you either. Because his primary goal is to erode your trust in God. So the temptation to fear is a temptation not to trust. So what do you do about that? Well, how do you fight temptation? The Bible says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. So how do you resist? When you sense a what if thought coming into your mind to get you upset and to lead you down a fearful spiral, you resist. You say, I know what you're trying to do to me, and you send that thought to the foot of the cross, and you refuse to agree with it or follow it. And then you turn to Jesus and ask him, what do you have to say about this situation? I've heard Satan's view. What do you have to say? And then listen for Jesus' response, because his response is, you can relax. Don't be afraid. I'm looking after you. Enjoy my perfect love. So let's take a big step and unload some fear right now. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to go through your life history and gather up all the fear that you've been carrying. The things you're worried about now. Think of the things that bothered you as a child, a teen, a young adult. I want you to gather up all that fear that you've carried your whole life. And I want you to put it into a big bag in your mind's eye, in your spirit's eye. And I want you just to gather it all up and put it into a bag. So do you have it all together right now? And now I want you to see yourself handing it to Jesus. Just hand it to him. Now watch what he does with it. Jesus, we've now handed you all the fear we've been carrying for so long. What do you have for us in return? And just listen to what Jesus says or shows you right now. Jesus, we receive your perfect love because it destroys all of our fear. To live a transformed life, you need to resist the temptation to fear and hand it all to Jesus. Now I want to hear from you. What did Jesus do with your fear when you handed it to him? Just leave your comments in the box below. And if this is your first visit here, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to my weekly email newsletter by filling out the subscription form, and you know where it is. It's always right there. And I'll talk to you again next week. But this week, don't take the bait to fear.